Indie Game Garden.
Hi there, I'm Johnny, and I'm starting up this little project to express my joy and unbridled joy in games and have some discussions with game developers, hopefully help their projects get a little bit more attention while fighting back against this age of internet apathy that I have noticed. I'm 27, and life in the world today feels strange in that if you're good at something, if you're trying to appear cool, you almost have to put on this air of like, yeah, so what? It happened, it's in the past, and moving on. And I just think that creates such a sad environment of not expressing our joy. And I want to express joy in games and in game developers making beautiful art. And so that is the reason why I'm going to be your head botanist in the garden. Today we are welcoming, for our first interview, Jakob Wahlberg, an extremely talented game designer. He worked at Image and Form for 10 years in the heyday of the Steam World series and was the art lead on Steam World Heist, one of my favorite games. Since 2022, he has been making indie games in small teams. Go Mecha Ball is a fast-paced twin-stick shooter where player characters can zip around in the game's wonderful environments and Sonic-style speedballs. Jakob also worked on No Rest for the Wicked, Wavetail, and The Gunk. He's from Sweden, and I really enjoyed talking to him. So now, without further ado, let's welcome him to the garden.
Yeah, so I wasn't always an art lead. I started at an Image and Form when they were porting SteamWorld Dig 1 to the PC, and I started as a graphical artist. And as we approached Steam World Heist, there was a need for a art lead. We didn't have that in the Steam World Dig, I think. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know what that would entail. I kind of was allured by the title mostly, I think.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds cool. I want to be an art lead with the emphasis on lead. I guess that was just like it sounded nice and I wanted that title.
Yeah.
So, little did I know that it was mostly like planning and delegating and, I mean, less time drawing stuff and more time in meetings and just making sure that everyone knows what to do and delegating tasks, setting up lists. So the actual job wasn't that fun. It was more like, you progress the ladder, or you think you do. And I would say if I were to do it again, I would probably, no man, no art lead for me. It's not my cup of tea. But it was fun. SteamWorld Heist is a dear memory developing that game. I know we struggled a lot with certain environments, especially it took a long, long time before we settled on the faction royalist, how they were going to look like. And we used vector graphics, which gives it that kind of, I wouldn't say iconic look, but it's a certain look you don't see too often in 2D games, where we kind of use these sharp shapes.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of resembles pixel art quite a lot, but is still distinct from it. It's like I wouldn't say upgrade, but it's in the same like base class of artistic expression, where you have these sharp silhouettes, very clear, very, it looks gamey, whatever that aesthetic is. Like I guess iconic is a thing you could use, but iconic in the sense that it's the silhouettes and shapes and clarity that
Right.
gets priority. We also worked a lot on making sure that the characters read well against the background and, um, you know, making sure that saturation and what you call it now, brightness levels, no, values.
Hmm.
So you kind of separate values from the background and the characters so they always pop out. But in terms of being art lead, I wouldn't say that that experience was anything special. More like I got to do more boring stuff.
More boring stuff for the good
Additionally,
of the team,
for
for
the
the
good
good
of the
of the
team,
whole.
I'm not sure I was honorable enough to think like that, but I'm happy to hear that you can view it that like that. Uh, no, I mean, I definitely felt the responsibility and took it on me to make sure that everyone knew what to do, etc. But I mean, there's the sense of how do you say it, duty and the individual's pleasure while
Right.
doing what's one's duty. Uh, I don't think I am made for logistics.
Right.
More like free flowing, more impulsive, more like go and feel. So,
I
but I can
gotcha.
definitely do it. It's just like it takes more energy from me than I would assume someone else that's more shaped towards that line of thinking. Some people are naturals at it, and they kind of do it. If if not anyone else is doing it, they're doing it, and they might even be doing it if someone else is doing it. So
Right. Yeah.
it's like some people are just naturally gravitate towards control, I guess, making sure
Yeah.
that they know what they are supposed to do and that they know what everyone else is doing as well. So
Yeah.
that becomes like a subconscious process in them. And I guess that's the person you kind of want to have in those positions. And for them, I think being art lead would be excellent, but I wouldn't recommend it just viewing it as a type of ladder climbing.
I
You
gotcha.
probably need to make sure you like that line of work. It
Yeah,
becomes
it's
less
almost,
art, more logistics and social.
yeah.
You need to take care of the team. You need to delve into social dynamics. And yeah, that's the part of being. I mean, you're not really the boss when you're an art lead, you're more like a delegator.
Right.
But as you get more responsibility, also the human psychology and the complexity of it will kind of more and more show itself, and you need to be able to navigate that as well. Just the social dynamics of a team, making sure that if that person gets to do that, how will that affect this person? I mean, not everyone thinks like that, but I I had a hard time not thinking about that. So in that sense, yeah, the work expands in branches that you may or not have foreseen.
Yeah, it's kind of like that project manager mind versus like a more creative
Yeah.
mind at work.
Some people are more gifted at the other. A few unicorns are gifted at both. I'm probably not gifted at both. I can do both, but if I have to choose, I'm probably more inclined to choose the creative side of things.
Yeah, and I was actually wondering if you're okay just skipping forward for a little while here. I was wondering how maybe being, duty bound to do some of the things that you maybe don't naturally gravitate toward as far as like overseeing parts of the project. Has
Yeah.
that helped you take some of your own projects now that you have kind of struck out on your own from start to finish in a way that feels more organized? Or did it not really kind of, since it was managing a team versus now managing yourself and maybe a few other collaborators, does it not really transfer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, to some degree, it's about being able to construct a blueprint in your head, right? So if you don't know what to do, that will create unease.
Mm-hmm.
And unease is friction, but as you progress and you gain experience in the field, things become more clear and you
Mm-hmm.
won't feel friction while doing those things. So for me, I would say I don't experience a lot of friction while doing games nowadays. And I think it's mainly due to, I mean, I've been doing this for quite a few years now. I think I'm pushing well over a decade. So largely, I feel like I know what to do at any given point in the production. I'm also aware of the pitfalls and the where friction is expected, and that it's a phase, and it will probably um, that phase will probably end, and some better phase will come, and you will
Yeah.
feel like you're in the flow again.
Yeah. Yeah. It
So
comes and goes.
yeah, ebb and flows. Yes.
Um,
I think there's like a classical chart feel is kind of demonstrates it quite well. Like you have this honeymoon phase, and then you have, and if you have a team, there's also like this phase of establishing like indirect hierarchies. I think, yeah. So there's a lot of asynchronous processes in creating games, like the game itself, the team, the business sides of things, and yeah, and it can be quite a challenge to stay on top of all of those like separate processes at once. And hopefully you're not a single individual that needs to handle it all by yourself,
mhm.
but if you are, I'm sorry for you. um, So yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why people tell you to make small games at first, because it's not just about being able to create a game. It's about navigating the process of releasing a game.
Mhm.
And that entails much more than just being able to code, being able to do art. That's a huge part of it, of course. But it's creating the map of the production itself. So oh, I've been here before. I spent way too much time on this, and in the end, we didn't use it, or in the end, we had to reiterate on it so much that the work I put into it so early didn't matter.
Mhm.
So yes, there's a lot of things you learn to navigate, and a lot of wisdom in how to kind of when where and when to apply work.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess as I grow older and become more and more used to this line of work, one thing I focus on in keeping the game kind of horizontally. Are you aware of the term vertical slice?
Yes.
Yes. That is a slice where you kind of show the potential of a game by essentially creating a small diorama where the game is polished and presentable. But that can in itself create a big hurdle for the team because you kind of jump ahead the game's process and you have to pay the debt later in production. So I would argue, and what I try to do, it's not always possible, but I would recommend horizontal slices where you kind of not you don't polish it, you kind of create a big slice of it. And at some point you're so comfortable with the slice. I mean, the utopian idea would be that the game is finished but in a rough state in terms of polish, and then you have a phase where you kind of add beautiful things to it. Yeah, and for some people games are more holistic. They perhaps need to see the art to feel where they're supposed to go, and some people are more art oriented, and perhaps seeing things makes it easier for them to see where they're supposed to go. I think I can internalize a lot of that nowadays. I'm not sure I could always, but I feel like I can quite early have a notion of how it's supposed to look like. And I can kind of, like an AI, I guess, dress the prototype in this the clothing I eventually want to give it in my head, so I can focus on the thing that makes the game good first. And when I feel comfortable with that, slowly adding layers of polish. Because what happens is, and this is a common trap, I would say, is that when you don't know what to do, you focus on the things that you can do. And those things are often polish, things that are fun, but that adds weight to your project. And when you end up at a position where you actually need to do real work, shaping the actual game, you are basically navigating the Titanic. It's just so the inertia and weight of the project is so heavy that there's a lot of friction when doing uh, big reiterations, revisions.
Right.
And then the sense of being stuck comes because you know what you need to do. You just have uh, put yourself in quicksand, so it's harder for you to navigate it. So knowing that, I give myself the favor of not putting me in a bathtub full of quicksand too early.
That is certainly doing yourself a favor. And it almost reminds me of this metaphor of I like how you talked about putting weight on the project, and it's like almost building a scaffolding or almost like putting layers on top of one another with a cake is how I imagine it before decorating the cake.
Yeah.
Because if you did that first and you put another layer on top, then all the decorations would be messed up. You'd have to redo them.
Yeah, like a clear example would be if you're exploring what type of enemies you have in the game. And you do the art, you do the animation, you do the VFX. For each exploration of what type of enemy you want to create, you then, if you have one enemy that has a certain level of polish, it's very hard to not do that for all the other enemies that follow. And it will also be weird for the people looking at the game and seeing one enemy that's fully fledged, polished,
Right.
and then there comes a capsule.
Yeah.
So it's also about setting expectations and communicating with the people that are going to, I guess, judge your game in a sense.
Hmm.
So if you present a project to an investor or partners and you have like an uneven quality to your prototype, that's not good.
Yeah.
You kind of want to have one expression, I guess. And it should probably not look like the finished thing, because you don't leave anything for the imagination.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think
Yeah.
people in general have a hard time extrapolating scaling. Like
Mm.
adding a single VFX isn't just adding a VFX, it's doing the code support, adding it to every type of entity that's supposed to have that VFX. Every time you make a change to it, you need to make a change to every entity that has it. And every time you have an equal important feature, you would expect it to have VFX as well.
Hmm.
So the weight is not any single thing. It's the structure you need to enable it, and the scaling, and when that transfer to multiple entities, I guess.
Yeah. That all makes sense. And you can sense the complexity to changing, as you said, things to try to make them all seem the same, and how complicated that can get if you over polish one aspect.
Yeah, level design is exactly the same. Like if you're an artist driven level designer, it's very easy to add art to early, and every time you need to make like a design oriented change to the level, you need to remove all the grass, you need to remove all the trees,
Right.
and at some point the choice of doing what you know is right and the cost of doing that change
Yeah.
becomes hard to navigate.
Yeah, I bet.
It's very lucrative to just, I mean, I put so much work into all of those trees and grass, so I guess this area is fine.
I just wanted to switch gears here for a moment and talk about you are kind of in the Swedish game scene.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, in your opinion, if there are any particularly distinctive elements to Swedish games, or more particular, or like more generally, like Swedish art or Swedish media, that maybe like someone from the U.S. like me wouldn't be as familiar with.
I mean, in this area, I would probably need to lean on what other people have said,
Hmm.
more so than my own experience. But from what I've heard, I mean, I might have experienced this to some degree, but it's very anecdotal. Like I don't know this to be a general truth.
Hmm.
But from what I've heard, and it's true in my case, I know, but being quite blunt, uh, in terms of, I mean, it's so hard because I'm not sure I believe this myself, but uh, compared to other cultures, I think Sweden generally has a pretty flat hierarchy, social hierarchy.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't have much to compare with,
Yeah.
but this, like, the hierarchical dynamics are pretty flat, and the people at the floor feel inclined to push on things that perhaps in other countries they wouldn't dare to, perhaps,
Mm.
or would culturally don't feel inclined, that they're in their position to voice their opinion on that particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think Swedish people, from what I heard, are pretty opinionated and not afraid to voice their opinion, and not afraid to question authority. But as I said, this, I don't know if this is true. That's what I've heard. I think it's true in my case. I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad thing at all times, but um, yeah, and we don't kind of, you know, the term corporate sandwich.
I'm actually not familiar with that term.
So when you give someone feedback, you kind of need to start with
Oh, sure. You
positive
start with
feedback,
the sweet
and
and
then
then
your
critical.
actual feedback comes, and at the end you say something nice.
Right.
And I feel some cultures are kind of corporately sandwichy in whatever they do, right? So
Right.
whatever they talk about, it's a corporate sandwich.
Yeah.
And I think culturally, it seems like Sweden are perhaps more to the point, which can be, I'm not sure off putting is the correct term, but facing, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like some people perhaps expect the dance before the kiss.
I gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's interesting to hear you say that because what comes to mind immediately is like how does that then translate to the teams you've worked on in games? Do you think that the sort of blunt communication style, if it comes into play, do you think that that has any sort of bearing on the final product or the way the team runs, or like you said, you don't have much to compare it to, so maybe you're not exactly sure how different it would be otherwise.
It will empower the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, feeling like you have a voice and that you can affect the outcome of the game both creates a certain type of loyalty and sense of responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
but it also turns into too many chefs at some
Right.
times.
Too many cooks in the
And
kitchen.
I'm not sure that the arguments used to push certain features are always relevant.
Sure.
Um, and since there is a sense of flat hierarchy, it also means that what rules is our social dynamics. So you get indirect leaders, indirect decision makers that are not pointed, or it's not their jobs. It's more like they are in a social position to have their voices heard for good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that, I would say it's probably not always a good thing for the game, but that can take a lot of different expression.
Mm-hmm.
In certain teams, you have very charismatic leaders that people want to follow, and having someone with the vision that also has that sense of you want to please that person, or you want to be led by that person. Uh, then you will have like an indirect hierarchy that's more like a classic hierarchy, where you have this person that makes all the decisions, and everyone knows that this person is the one holding the reins. But it's not structurally as laid out as I could imagine it is in different cultures and countries.
Yeah.
I would assume that, for example, in the USA, you know who carries the vision, and everyone listens to that person.
Right.
And depending on, and for sure in Japan, like, I would imagine that is the case. And if that person that holds the reins is competent and know what he or she is doing, then the output will probably be good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It rests more on that one person.
But it doesn't mean that the whole team will enjoy the process as much as.
Yeah.
I mean, the game can be great, but everyone was miserable doing it. That is all.
Right.
That happens all the time as well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of working on a team, I just kind of want to return to Image and Form for a moment. And the way I actually found you initially, I was doing some research into Image and Form, and I saw some stuff online about how it was integrated into Thunderful development. And as of recently, none of your former coworkers are working at Thunderful. And so the whole situation seems indicative of a larger trend to me in gaming that even sets the 2020s apart from the 2010s, where there's just so much consolidation. I know it was probably happening, 10 years ago as well. But it feels like, especially today, every time you look at a piece of gaming news, there's layoffs. And one larger company kind of snapping up a few smaller ones, and it's happening in games journalism. It's happening in obviously the making of games and that industry. And I was just wondering, in your opinion and what you're seeing, how are these patterns affecting the games that are being made and released today? And is the resulting proliferation of indie games made by developers as, solo devs or teams that are smaller and kind of splintering out after these types of layoffs? Do you think that kind of proliferation of more independent games and smaller games and games with fewer cooks in the kitchen, but there being more of them, do you think that that's a net positive or potentially a negative for the art form, since there is this consolidation going on?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll start at. Okay, so when I started at Image and Form, the atmosphere was very family.
Mm-hmm.
We were a bunch of nerds that liked the same thing, and our boss was awesome. We had a great time making games. Everyone liked everyone sufficiently. No, we had a great time. For real. But then things started to go well, and I think the leadership perhaps shifted priority from having a good time making games and promoting games to, oh, we can actually earn quite a bit of money here.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually still remember the day when we were called into a meeting and looking at curves, financial curves.
Right.
And I saw the eagerness in the eyes of the leadership. And that worried me quite a lot, I remember. And then talks about scaling come. And I think I quite early voiced the worry that many of the people who work here because they like the small context of working with games in a small group where you know each and every one, and you kind of hang out, you have a good time, and you like each other, and you feel loyalty, you feel responsibility, um, and engaged in the product.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, things started to happen in the company structure that wasn't communicated. So it was clear that there were two separate things happening at once, where I felt like everyone knew what was happening before. Now all of a sudden there was this drive to expand the company, and that was kind of hush hush. So everyone felt a bit like they didn't know exactly what was happening, and then that creates distance from the company. It doesn't increase your engagement, it increases worries because you don't know what's happening, what are we doing. So there was a lot of like decision made that were surprising. The merge with Soink was the first step that was surprising, although many suspected it would happen. And then they created the Thunderfall group, and just starting to expand crazy fast. And I mean, every week I would see a new face, and the people I used to hang out with, I saw more seldom. And even though our office had never had so many people in it, I felt more isolated than I have ever been felt before. So I remember less and less engaging with people and just focusing on my work. And I also remember feeling more distance towards the project I was working on, because I felt like a cog all of a sudden. As before, I felt like we're making something together. Now I felt like I'm making this for the company. And that's a huge difference, because if you're making something together, you invest parts of yourself in it. It's not just your hands doing what's expected. You get that little extra, that, I guess, love for the craft. And I feel like that is so important to cultivate. You don't just want hands on the table. You want the whole person doing the thing. Yeah, so the focus was for sure more economical, and I can't really give you the reasons behind why that happened. I can just report from the field. So everything I expected would happen happened. I don't know the technicalities behind it. I knew a few people made a lot of money. A lot of people got fired. Laid off. But I don't want to speculate. I don't know the reasons behind it. I feel like it was unfortunate. I feel a lot of people behind the engine behind this probably regret it, that it was a bad decision. And to be fair, if you are the head of a company, it makes sense that your drive is related to the company itself. Because often you're perhaps not hands on deck making games, you're handling the company, and that's the thing you kind of progress. I mean, the sense of progression for you is tied to the company itself. So it makes sense that you would like to do what you think pushes that, to touch new territories, to I guess what you imagine would make it better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not always clear for everyone, I believe, what better is. Is it more money? Is it more having a good time? Is it scale? Uh, so yes, I think many people would probably not make the same decision again. And I would guess this is kind of the mechanism behind a lot of other similar scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's an economical incentive instead of a creative incentive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you separate it further by hiring people that are supposed to handle each distinction of this relationship.
Right.
And they influence each other. Perhaps the economical side influence the creative side more than vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly you have economical imperatives that drive production.
Mm-hmm.
And you then do research and you look at other games that have done well and forget that perhaps the reason why the other games did well was because they had someone with a vision that felt that this was intuitively right to do. They had the team behind them. They were passionate about it. It wasn't like a strategic choice to make a certain type of product that will please a certain type of person. You know, often you don't know who you will please until they are pleased. So for me, it's better to make games that you know you like, because else you need to project like a virtual customer.
Right.
You're not the target audience yourself. So how are you going to drive decisions to make a game for that imaginary person? You kind of need to be that person because it's so much nuance, so many decisions. You need to feel what's intuitively right and wrong. And you can only do that, I think, by either, I mean, you could probably do it with like strict structure and I guess research, and but I mean, it's much easier to just, oh, this person, this team loves this type of games. Let's make one of those games,
Yeah.
and they will just intuitively know when it's bad or wrong, what's good, what to do, because they feel it instinctively. Oh, we're having fun in a genre, a type of game that I enjoy, so we are on the right track. I feel like everyone knows or sees a game that's made by strategic decision rather than passion or
Right.
love. You can almost see it on a single screenshot. It's so clear,
Mm-hmm.
and yet so many fall into trap. I mean, it's not bad to make strategic decisions, but it should probably be in line with what you want to do. The strategy should probably not guide too much. It should aid you on the path of making something you want to do. And having a big company, there's so many individuals. I'm not sure who has the passion, who has the vision. It kind of needs to be strategic at some point. If the company didn't start by a individual that had a massive vision, massive like drive that he or she could transfer to the rest of the people. I
Right.
feel like Hazellight might be. I don't know this for sure, but I know that Yusuf Faris is a very charismatic person, and I would probably enjoy working for him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you work for someone that loves what they are doing immensely, that can't help to kind of influence you. Suddenly, you start loving it too.
Yeah. 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 And I feel like that is representative probably of what you're talking about as well, where in larger groups, the thing that is influencing in larger groups that make projects that feel heartfelt and made with care. I think a lot of the time what you're saying is true, where, one or a few people have the vision, but they are, so generous with that vision and obviously so in love with it that that can spread across a team, which is
Yeah,
cool
and
to see.
then there's the like historical aspect of it as well. Like if there's a franchise or IP that you grew up with, let's say Diablo, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if you love Diablo, and it kind of becomes this generational
Right.
thing then,
You've
because
always
you have these
dreamed of
people
working
that
at
grew up with
Blizzard.
a certain type of game, they know everything about it and they would love to work on it. But yes, but you can definitely feel the tension between the business and the art in a lot of these companies.
Yeah.
If they would focus less on economical incentives, would Diablo 4 look like it does today? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Would it look differently if the passionate people that want to progress the genre and do a modern interpretation of the genre they grew up with and love? I'm certain it would look pretty different.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I must mention, I mean, Moon Studios, who released No Rest for the Wicked.
Right.
I feel like they do it that way. They had a strong vision. I know Thomas has talked a lot about innovating on the genre. And they worked their asses off to. I mean, that game has been in early access for 1 or 2 years, I think, and became
Mm-hmm.
like an overnight success after they released their latest update. So I'm really impressed by their dedication, actually. But also, the dedication come from
Right.
knowing what the vision was.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know Kennedy and Thomas, and I know they're extremely passionate about what they do. So they simply didn't give up until they had a game they were aiming to do. But if you don't have that aim, if you don't have that internal compass, when will you stop?
Right.
Because you don't have like an internal end goal. You're just projecting that from an abstract customer that is not anyone on your team. It's a imaginary uh, imaginary person.
Right. I kind of wanted to narrow the scope a little bit as we come toward the end of the interview here, where now you're working on your own projects. Go Mecha Ball, which is a run and gun roguelite shooter with pinball mechanics, which I checked out and was wonderful to play. Congratulations, by the way. I know it's been a while since it was released, but it's
Thank
an
you.
awesome accomplishment nonetheless. But in order to make that game, you transition from working predominantly on art to learning how to code and develop games more holistically. And I would love to hear more about that process. And interestingly enough, the game that kind of brought me to you, Steam World Heist, came out, if I'm not mistaken, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the 10-year anniversary. And I was wondering, like, what would your present self have to say to the artist you were 10 years ago, or maybe just convey some learnings in the time since then?
Yeah. So when I started at Image and Form, I was like bubbling with ideas, and I thought I knew everything. And I at least had a lot of things to say. The flat hierarchy again. Um, but as I was invited to the round table of decisions, I probably became more friction than helping.
Hmm.
So what I felt was right, the other people didn't feel was right, and they were in the majority. So I became friction in their process, because what matters is, at the end of the day, we're making a game together. So what I should have done is probably shut up and listen more, and see if I sense the general direction of where people wanted it to go, and perhaps see if any of my intuition could help navigating in that general direction, instead of becoming a break in the process by pushing like a contrast ideas and argumenting from my perspective, and just creating a lot of friction in the design process. And I wasn't invited to the round table a short time after that. And I saw other people navigating that more better. Like, so yeah, I think I would make sure to be helpful. And if you are helpful and people recognize you as helping rather than frictionless, they will listen to you more. So you kind of need to look at yourself as a entity that progresses in time. And by helping yourself in a year, you need to be helpful to other people, because then they will naturally gravitate towards you when they have a problem.
Right.
And soon they will ask you to solve the problem right from the start.
Yeah.
Because you have a track record of being helpful. Hopefully you have a track record of things you've said that actually gave positive results. But you don't want that to be like a totally different direction at the start.
Right.
Because then you will become friction, no matter how good your ideas is. You might have the best idea in the world, but if no one else on the team can see it, then you become friction, because you're in another process than they are, and you are making a game together. So you may not get every idea you have out on the table your first games, maybe not even your second game. But if you get a reputation of being helpful and making processes easier, it's quite easy to see how people would lean on you more progressively as time goes by. So I would probably just be more helpful and care less about getting your own ideas on the table. Feel where the majority wants to go. See if you can shape the road in ways that you feel are better, but don't diverge from the road altogether.
Yeah. That would be some good advice if we could reach back through time.
I mean, I wouldn't know that if I wasn't excluded from the table. I had to think about it. So, as I said, I had a lot of ideas, and I was mainly an artist, and I was always curious about the different aspects and disciplines involved in making games. So I would naturally learn things because I was curious. So if there was anyone, or if there was work needed in things no one knew, I would probably be the one, or be one of the ones that offered myself to kind of look at it. Whether it be animation, VFX, but coding always felt like this magical land. I would stand behind, and I would also ask, but what are you doing? Like, what's this? Why does this work? I just saw if a bunch of weird symbols, and suddenly have a character running around that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see the pattern, or like, I just deemed it as something I was incapable of.
Mm.
But at some point, I must admit, it was probably like frustration, like a creative frustration. I was incapable of making the games that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was dependent on a programmer,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't guaranteed that the programmer knew what I was after, or had the same taste,
Mm.
or knew what was important and what wasn't important.
Right.
So at some point, I just bought a course on Udemy,
Mm-hmm.
Unity for newbies or something.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, I started to understand what a float was, what a bool was, and I think I finished perhaps 1/3 of that
Yeah.
course until I just abandoned it and started making my own prototypes. And I
Yeah.
did a lot of shitty prototypes, and the code was probably close to hellish. But in some weird ways, I always got the thing to feel like I wanted it to,
Yeah.
because I had this strong vision of how I wanted it to look, and I just typed random shit in the Visual Studio until it felt like I wanted it to.
Yeah.
And so I often say, like, I have 1,000 stubborn monkeys in my brain that just types on the keyboard until I get the results I want. But I mean, I've been programming now for maybe close to 5-6 years. I guess I'm okay at it now.
I
Uh,
mean,
I
it
mean, I
seems like
haven't.
it from my end.
Yeah, but I mean, there's levels to this. If you ask Jonathan Blow,
Right.
he would probably, I mean, throw rotten fruit at me or something. But yeah, I feel very confident that I can present the experience I want on a monitor.
Yeah.
That's for sure. How the engine or the code that leads me there, I mean, I haven't had like a code review or anything like that. I mean, AI, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't use it for art or music or whatnot, but as a semi proficient programmer that often doesn't know what he's doing, having someone to review your code, help you out with certain functions, and understanding algorithms, it's been a huge help for me, at least.
Yeah. That's cool to hear.
I'm still on the fence whether I think it's generally a good thing or a bad thing, but for me to spend less time thinking about code and more time making games, I would say is a good thing for me personally. But I won't dispute that it's a lot of complexities involved
Totally.
in this.
But I think how you're describing it is like an awesome use case for the technology, is like helping, smooth some of the things out and ask it questions, but not have it be the driving creative force that's still you
Yeah,
and your vision, which is
because my
awesome to
first
hear.
job as a programmer was I switched studio to Zoink, which was
Mm,
in the same office. It wasn't this huge change
mm,
because we had merged by that time. So I
right.
worked as a programmer on a game called Wavetail,
Mm,
I believe it was called. And then we had like code reviews, etc. And that was good. I learned a lot, especially from a guy named Tim. He was very patient with me, and I was very curious and asked a bunch of stuff. I didn't understand half of what he said, but at least I pretended. uh, yeah, but I was definitely not a good programmer by then. But still, my code was in the game, and
Learn by
I guess
doing,
it was
right?
good enough.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm much better now if compared to that. So I haven't like had a proper code review from anyone that actually knows how to code. It would actually be quite interesting to okay, no one has looked at my code for like 5 years. Is this shit or is it okay? Am I a junior programmer or am I a senior programmer?
That would be interesting. Well, we'll have to figure it out, and if you ever do get one of those reviews, definitely report back. I just had two more short questions.
Yeah.
The first is if you had to recommend one or a few games to the listeners that are maybe off the beaten path or just personal favorites, any that you would recommend these days?
I would recommend Animal Well.
Of course, yeah.
Inside and Cocoon.
Oh, I haven't heard of Cocoon. I love Inside though. That was like the first game I ever wrote about.
Yeah, Cocoon is made by the designer of.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who worked on Inside that worked on Cocoon.
Well, this has been a delightful chat, Jakob. I really appreciate your time. I just had one final question, and feel free to say that the answer is no, I'm not going to tell you another person to talk to. Go figure that out for yourself. But this being the Indie Game Garden, I'm excited to do a process that I'm going to call something like propagation, where I'll ask my guests to kind of drop the name of another developer or game maker or person in the industry that they respect, who I might be able to reach out to for an interview down the road. So is there anyone that you would recommend I have on the show at some point?
3 people come to mind.
Oh, great.
One is Jonas Turner, the sound guy on Go Mecha Ball.
Oh, great.
He's always interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of things to say. And he's, I mean, the top of his field, I would say. Like,
oh, amazing.
Also, I would like to hear Bennett Foddy, one of my personal favorites.
Me too. That would be an incredible conversation.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention Getting Over It. In my top list, it definitely deserves to be there.
How far up have you gotten in Getting Over It?
I was probably one of the first to complete that game.
Wow. That's an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah. I remember talking to him in the secret that is to... it's not a secret anymore. It was a chat room. And I said, I want to work with you, man. Basically. And there was just a few handful people there at the time when I got up. Andrew Scholdice is always fun to listen to. Jesper Karlsson, the designer on Cocoon and Inside, would be fun to listen to. Yeah, those are probably the people I can point at.
You're giving me a long list of names, so the show's gonna be nice and healthy. And like I said, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending the hour with me.
Take care.
Bye, you too.
Bye.
Hey, it's Johnny again. Thank you so much for listening to this first episode. If you made it this far, it probably means that you at least somewhat enjoyed what you were hearing or are a little bit interested, and that makes me really happy to hear. Mainly if you're looking for updates on the show, I would just watch this space. I do have an Instagram set up that is at Indie Game Garden. I'm also Indie Game Garden on YouTube. And I'll be posting the full podcast there, in addition to some shorts and some other content kind of behind the scenes. So if you're looking to keep up with the show, give me a follow, give me a like, whatever you enjoy. If you're just liking the pod on the podcatcher of choice, please give me a rating or tell a friend. Also, please feel free to send me an email at indiegamegarden@gmail.com, INDIE gamegarden@gmail.com. Thanks. Additionally, I think at the end of the show here, I will sometimes, before the final theme song, just go ahead and talk through some of my thoughts on gaming week to week. I'm not sure how often I'll be releasing this podcast. Ideally, it would be weekly, but might have to do monthly or bi-weekly to start out, just in terms of what guests I can get. That's another thing. If you know someone who's a guest and would be great to have in the garden for an episode, you can feel free to email me. In the end, this is about bringing fun stories about joyful indie developers to folks, and also just like doubling down on kind of what I alluded to at the beginning, which is like rejecting apathy and rooting our joy in games. And the way I kind of view it is apathy is this stone that has kind of prevented a lot of our growth, and we're going to put down roots to grow right through it and get back to kind of the humanity and art in games and in life. And so to that end, some things that I've been enjoying this week are building out my physical collection of PSP games a little bit. I also modded my PSP to get a cool like custom blue flame theme on it, and some of the games on there that are like $100 on eBay that I'm not going to bother with. The PSP in general is just such a fun little novelty toy. I'm really surprised that it exists, and if you do have the means and you're kind of looking around at, I know there's a lot of like newer retro handhelds on the market these days, and I just think like picking up a refurbished or modded PSP is so lovely. It'll transport you right back to kind of the 2007 to 2011 era, and I don't know, at least for me, that was like my joy, my period of sort of first finding games and first finding my interest in art and things beyond, you know, the sports that I kind of saw other boys doing, and even the kind of Call of Duty-esque shooting games that I saw other boys around my age doing, and looking into just games that stretch beyond that. Mario Baseball was my first love when I was even younger than that, and I like to think that kind of informs my taste, even though it is a sports game. It's perhaps not exactly what you would think as like a hardcore gamer, and so with that in mind, I've really been enjoying kind of exploring RPGs and other off-the-beaten-path games on PSP and 3DS, dipping into a retro catalog there. The 3DS is just an unparalleled device. I think it still holds up to this day, whereas the PSP I view more as like an interesting experiment that probably doesn't hold up quite as well, but brings me just as much joy. On the 3DS, I've been playing Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology, which is kind of an outstanding landmark RPG made by Atlas, the Persona folks. And then on the PSP, I've been playing the emblematic of the PSP game Jeanne d'Arc, which is kind of a wild miracle, a tactics RPG following closely the life of a fictional Joan of Arc. So I'm recording here in my room in Seattle. You can hear the car alarm going off potentially, but that's what we're going to do to get this show off the ground. Like I said, give me a ring if you like it, if you want to support it, and I'm excited to kind of see where we can go from here. So hopefully I can get one of those people that Jakob mentioned. I think Bennett Foddy and Jesper Karlsson might be big swings off the bat, but that would certainly help out. So stay tuned. Look up Indie Game Garden on different platforms and see if you can kind of find stuff that I'm doing. But otherwise, I'll be back here soon with another interview, and I really appreciate you listening. Thanks. Bye.